Welcome back. We've had a lot of fun. It's been a little bit silly. It's been a little bit childish. Yes, I know, so let's act like grown-ups for 2 minutes now. A new 30% tariff hike by US President Donald Trump is shaking up and rather reshaping global trade as we speak in South Africa, and unfortunately won't escape the ripple effects. I think we're probably already feeling it.
I feel it right now, from increased costs for imported goods to possible knock-on effects for local jobs, but also production. Economists are warning of tougher months ahead for businesses and consumers. But what does this really mean for South Africans, from big industries to ordinary households like you and I? And joining us today to unpack it, we've got an excellent panel. The real implications are going to be told by Sylvia Walker, financial planner and author, as well as a familiar face here, Danilo Acquisto, entrepreneur and CEO of Special Effects Media, but also radio personality on Good FM. Welcome, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Quite a tough topic.
A very tough one. Sylvia, I always feel like when you sit down with us, you've got to take a deep breath. You think, okay, how am I going to explain this to them so that we can understand? Because there are links across the world now on levels that we haven't really ever felt. So I'm going to give you 2 more seconds to think about how you're going to dumb it down for us, and start with you, Danilo. No, I mean, we wanted you in here because you kind of tick a lot of boxes. You're very much plugged into the world and what's going on, but you're also running a business. You're wanting to expand. I would imagine you've got very high hopes. How do you feel about this right now? Was this a terrifying thing, or was this happening in America? It's not going to affect me here in South Africa.
Well, it will absolutely affect us here, but to the extent to which we're still not sure. So at this stage, I think we're all just monitoring and watching and having lots of conversations like this about what if and what could and how could it be, and listening to the news. But luckily for us, our business is primarily a service-based business, and this doesn't affect service businesses. It's only for goods that are being imported by the US. And the tariff is applied on the US side. So really all it's going to mean is maybe about a 10 to 20% sort of like a reduction in sales from the country and bringing things in. So at this stage, I'm pretty optimistic and just kind of waiting for the medium-term sort of impacts. And we were just chatting off air, Sylvia and I. Could this be a storm in a teacup? We'll have to wait and see.
Let's hope, man. Well, at least means you're going to have to work harder to help sell the other products that aren't affected to be able to. Yeah, so
exactly.
Your
Maybe
service
it's a
might
good
boom.
thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, Sylvia, now we come to you. Danilo, to
Have
speak
you thought
about...
Because you gave quite a good one, so now you've made it even more difficult.
Just pass it to me. In terms of goods, as Danilo mentioned, when it comes to things like wine, citrus or cars, in terms of our exports, where do you think is going to be most impacted?
So the interesting thing is that when we talk about the US and the tariffs, only, well, I don't want to say only, but 8% of our exports go to the US.
Yeah.
China is actually our biggest export partner. But if you look at what we're exporting, the automotive industry makes up about 40%. So they are presumed to be, they're going to be knocked.
And that's a big...
It's a
cornerstone
huge chunk.
business for us.
It's a huge chunk. It's the Eastern Cape, employs a lot of people. So that's an industry, I think, that may be affected. Another one is obviously the agricultural industry.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 main industries that will be affected. But as we said, I think a lot of people also don't understand what is a tariff. A tariff is an import tax or customs. So if you order something from, we won't say who, but you pay customs, it's exactly the same thing. So it simply means that that bottle of wine or that car that comes from South Africa will cost 30% more on the shelf in the US. And that means it's more difficult, it's less competitive in that market. So that's really what the customs...
Thanks for breaking that down.
What it is.
And obviously the main drive here is Donald Trump is trying to inspire Americans to spend local. And we get that. I think everyone wants to kind of stimulate their local economy, but he could be creating opportunities for other markets here. And it didn't take you very long to bring China into the conversation. Will we see a fallout, or will China just step in and take and use the opportunity? Are we liable to see another player kind of benefit from this that could impact them probably more than us in this case? How do you see this playing out?
I think, Graham, it's easy to say because that's a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, OK, we're battling now to export or to be competitive in the US. Let's just go and export elsewhere. But those exporting elsewhere, it takes a long time to open those doors.
There's bedrock that needs to be laid down.
Yeah, it's difficult. And the government can obviously play a role in that, but it's not a quick fix. It's not like, OK, from the 1st of August, now we're suddenly going to export more to China.
Yeah, we're moving from apples to America to pears to China.
It takes time. Yeah, it takes time. Yeah.
And in terms of local business, in terms of supporting local as consumers that we can do, I know you said the export is more happening over in the US, but what's the impact that we're going to feel as South Africans?
It's such an interesting question because I think South Africans forget that this import tariff or this import tariff is not on us from an export. It doesn't make our costs any higher to produce the goods, to package the goods, to get the goods to the border. It's from the American side. So all it's going to do is decrease demand or potentially decrease demand from the Americans for our own goods and services, which means a loss in revenue, which means a re-looking at our cost structures. And this is where entrepreneurs need to be real entrepreneurs. Good business people find opportunity in challenges. It's when things get really tough that you have to be creative. And now is the time to start rethinking that. You know, we've been speaking about for the last 20 years, buy local, buy local, buy. What does that really mean? We can't absorb that amount of citrus into South Africa's economy.
We're a small market.
We cannot go around buying all that stuff ourselves. And also, it's just too expensive for our economic position. We're living in an economy that doesn't allow us to spend that kind of money on stuff. So we really need to think about other markets. We need to think about cost reduction, and let's just be entrepreneurial. Turn some of that fruit, for example, into pulp or into juice and sell that somewhere else where you can do it. So we're really going to have to think a bit more like entrepreneurs now.
That's how seed oils came about, dude. Just calm down, buddy. Calm down with your consumer-driven nonsense, okay? You're not even in consumer goods here. You're selling always. Sell with you.
I like the push for creativity, though. It is the time to do that.
Well, they're also importing a South African market to America to buy the stuff that they would want from South Africa. So they maybe want to rethink about that. But could we see interest rate shifts here? Financially, could we see a direct impact on the rest of South Africans that aren't selling goods to America?
So there's a whole knock-on effect. I mean, the economy obviously is a series of events that happen. So if the import tariffs mean that the rand weakens significantly, it means that what we're bringing in, what we're importing, costs us more. That adds to our production costs. So prices will rise in South Africa. Once prices start rising, we see inflation going up. Now, the Reserve Bank, one of the tools they use to manage inflation is through the interest rates. So when inflation goes up, the Reserve Bank increases the interest rates to curb spending. So I'm trying to be as simple as possible
100%,
here.
no, you're nailing it. Yeah.
So once inflation starts going up, they might increase interest rates to try and bring inflation down. So as I say, there is a knock-on effect, you know, across the board that we could actually experience. So yes, interest rates could potentially go up. And inflation could potentially go up,
and this is amidst a climate where there are a million other things affecting those same exact questions. So I would imagine in your game, it must be quite trying at the moment. Every time you turn on the news and Donald Trump has something new to say, I think we feel that butterfly effect across the globe. But what does it actually mean for us as consumers, as small business owners, as producers here in South Africa? I'm starting to feel a lot better about it. So thank you so much. They've done well. A bit of psychology here as well.
Part 2 of this conversation comes up now. But if you're anything like me and feeling what I'm feeling, we might need a dip out moment after the first part of this chat.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. Part 2 of this conversation has to, of course, continues. It's all around tariff hikes, which might sound like something that only big companies worry about, but they can affect jobs, what we pay for groceries, and even whether some products stay on the shelves or not. If production costs rise, businesses might slow down and families might feel it in their pockets.
So how bad could it get, and what can we do to adjust? Is it government's problem? Should they be tracking this very closely so they can offset the damage? Do we need to prepare as small business owners? It sounds like if you're an export, that's where it's going to hit hardest. So, Sylvia, again, we're going to grossly oversimplify. If we do get to that point where we're now in the automotive, for instance, that there is a massive knock-on effect, will we see job cuts, or will there likely be a financial counterbalance brought to the table, because this too shall pass, hopefully?
Hopefully, yes, hopefully. They're talking about, sort of, the experts say about 100,000 jobs potentially could be affected.
Sure.
It's not just the people in the industry, but obviously there's a whole knock-on effect on the supply chain, So I think there's, you know, another aspect to this is obviously the manufacturer who's supplying the product, suddenly his product or her product costs 30% more. Will they absorb some of that cost? How will that business deal with that increased tariff that, you know, that's being levied on their product? And if a business shrinks or has to downsize, their profitability will reduce, and that means less money for SARS to collect, which has, again, a knock-on effect in the economy.
For all of us,
There's less money for development, there's less money for to pay benefits. So it can potentially have quite a much wider, impact than simply just the job losses.
I was going to ask, are we like that? Will we cut jobs quickly in a hurry? He's nodding his head.
I think we do.
Are we quick too, or do you foresee someone stepping in to offset the balance here, or are we likely to see jobs?
I'm not sure offset how.
Where do you put the money in? Yeah.
There's no subsidies for businesses that aren't doing well financially.
Well, presumably they've all got wonderful relationships with their banks, and they will be able to, in some way, mitigate it for themselves.
Not even the banks can rescue this, though. I mean, in China, this happened 2015, 2018 with the bans between America and China, but China had a really strong economy. They were able to find this sort of subsidies from government to support manufacturing. They found all the other markets, and then kind of like they would almost buy all the stock and then sell it somewhere else. We can't do that here. So here there will be job losses. There will absolutely have to be.
Just too small.
Unless the business can absorb some of that cost. Maybe that's another way. They do have less profits. They just absorb somehow in their production process.
The president is only a president for 4 years.
No, that's what they said last time, buddy. That's what they said last
Careful
time.
now. Well, speaking of, I did say you've got my vote. If any time, then you know you're trying to run for office. But you did mention earlier about the creativity that this does spark, and I want to touch on that for a moment. You're an entrepreneur. I feel like South Africa is filled with entrepreneurs because we're a resourceful nation, right? We always, where there's a need, there's a gap.
And we pivot.
We pivot, exactly.
Yeah.
COVID taught us that as well. We get in there and make sure that we meet our needs. So what would you say to people who might feel discouraged about the headline of this 30% tariff hike?
Don't be discouraged. I really don't think we should be. This is happening all over the world all the time. There are constant challenges in business. Business is hard. This is just another hard thing that you're experiencing.
Right.
And there are a couple of things I wanted to mention. We were chatting before the camera started rolling as well too, but something so interesting for us to think about as South Africans is, it's going to be 30% more expensive, but it's probably still 80% better than the rest of the world's products, and maybe there are tariffs in other territories as well. So we can't expect 30% means 30% less income to the country. It will only have a marginal impact on that. So don't panic too much. It's not your entire sort of revenue. But the creativity is where I get really excited. Our biggest impacts, I know you've mentioned automotive, which is a really big one, hard to move, but our exports in terms of citrus. You've seen citrus kind of...
There's a lot of citrus around these parts, son.
And we have far too much to consume. We're making so much citrus that not even South Africans can consume them. We need to find other markets, or like during COVID when sort of wine couldn't be exported, what happens to all of those products? You can take that fruit, turn it into pulp, make it into juices, sell it to other markets who need juice, but maybe not raw fruit. And you've got to be creative about the products that you're producing, and maybe even expand your supply chain. Start thinking about diversifying your products. If you want to do a campaign to buy more local, you could do so. But like I said, our market is too small for that. You need to start thinking about those other territories to sell to, buy
we've got
products.
an African ecosystem around us that is mushroom that China is investing very heavily in.
I just wanted to also say that as South Africans, we're used to having knocks. This is an economy in a country where
we're a sideways.
We get clipped all the time. There's always challenges. So I think this is just another challenge, and we are tough, we're resilient.
Yeah, the headline shouldn't scare anybody then.
Yes.
No, we'll get through it. I believe we'll get through it.
That's some nice encouragement on a Monday.
Was this a financial chat, a psychological
All of the
kind of self-improvement chat? I feel like we've ticked every box. Guys, thank you so much. Clearly, you've done a very deep dive. I know it's kind of your job. Well done, son. Well done. Thank you so much.
For president.
100%. And I put my vote there, but I think we're not going to open that can of worms because we've just got to make it to where are we in the 4-year process this time round? Number 2 year.
I think so, yeah.
Second
year.
term.
No,
Suspect. We are going to be okay. Now, from all jokes aside, from a South African perspective, it feels like we can mitigate the fallout, and we're not alone. The rest of the world is getting their tariffs as well. So things haven't quite balanced out, but I think we are going to be okay. Thank you so much, guys.